There we go.
Okay.
Yep. Shalom Aleichem. My name is Tyrone Webb, and I am the president and founder of Hint Magazine, Hebrew Israelite Nation Times, and my guest this morning, or for him this afternoon, is Sar Ahmadiel Ben Yehuda. He is the Minister of Information and National Spokesman of the African Hebrew Israelites of Jerusalem. Good morning. Good afternoon, my brother. How are you?
I'm doing super. Good morning to everyone on that side of the world. And everything's doing super here. Pleased to talk to you again, Brother Tyrone.
It's an honor, really, to have this opportunity to speak with you. You know, after meeting in Florida a couple years ago at the Florida International University. And so now I hear a very important time or date is coming up of really a lot of significance, and I'd like for you to speak on it concerning the 50 years, the Exodus from the United States to Israel. And if you could expound on that, it would be really, I really would appreciate hearing about that. What does that mean and the importance of it?
Well, first allow me to give all honor and praises to the Holy One of Israel, the Yahweh.
Praise, yes.
His anointed. And all those that are in search of peace, justice, truth, mercy, love, on this planet, on this earth, and in this great time and season that is upon us. I give you greetings from the New Jerusalem, from Dimona, Northeast Africa, Israel, here in the southern Judean mountains of the land of Israel. I greet everyone out there. Shalom Aleichem. Indeed, Brother Tyrone, indeed, we are happy and pleased to say that we're coming up on the 50th anniversary of our exodus from the United States, which we not so fondly refer to as the lands of the Great Captivity. And it was, of course, in 1966 that Ben-Ami, our anointed spiritual leader, received his vision. At that time, in 1966, he was a part of what was called a Beta Cultural Center in Chicago as an Israelite. And he would always ask the elders, well, when is our time to go back home? This was the early 60s.
Yeah.
You still with me?
Yes, I am.
So he would ask the question, when are we going back home? Because, of course, the state of Israel had been established, and we knew that it was a tangible entity over on this side of the water. And he was always given the answer that it's not time, and we're waiting for this or waiting for that, even some things like waiting on the ships of Tarshish. And it was always very mythical, something spooky in most senses. And it didn't rest well with him. And so in his meditations and prayers, at a very troubling time in the 60s, 66, the riots had begun to flare up, the major riots, and then a monster, snowstorm. All of these factors kind of converged, and it was in that season that he received the visit from the angel Gabriel, in which he said he was told to begin the Exodus in the following year, that it would take place the following year, which was 1967. And so, wrestling with the idea, first of all, who does he share this with, without being, looked upon with great suspicion, either having been crazy or lying or what have you. He finally, after a few days, began to share the vision with his close friends and associates at Abeda. And true to the revelation, by the next year he had managed to convince nearly 350 brothers and sisters from the confines of Chicago and northern Indiana, Gary area, to leave America. And in 1967, we struck out for the land of Israel via, as the brothers and sisters in their dialogues and in their research the prophecy said that we would return the same way that we had left. And so we began to look in West Africa for where we could, use as an embarkation station, as a midway point, a halfway house, a preparation, a wilderness, if you will.
Sure.
And there was Liberia.
Yep. Go ahead. You're fine.
Okay. And there was Liberia, whose constitution required that they open their doors to the brothers and sisters that wanted to return back from the captivity. And in sending a couple of emissaries, a couple of brothers over to Liberia in advance to spy out the land, to look at the situation, to indeed ascertain whether or not that was true. We were given a small plot of land, 100 miles in the interior, by the then President Tolbert, and by 1967, again, the brothers and sisters struck out. And so, fast forward, we are now 50 years outside of the lands of the captivity, 50 years on our own, 50 years outside of the lands of America as a viable sovereign entity. And I know that word might pinch some people who talk about sovereignty, and we're still, you might want to return to the issue later. We're still at the United Nations and other world bodies looking for recognition in that area in terms of sovereignty. But as far as we're concerned, we are a sovereign entity at this point.
Okay.
But we're coming up on 50 years, and 50 years is a landmark. 50 years is a very, very substantive kind of again, milestone in the history of a people. And so we've got lots to celebrate this coming New World Passover, as we call it, in the Freedom Festival of the Hebrews coming out of ancient Egypt. It's one thing to keep the Passover and to remember, as we are instructed and commanded to remember the Passover. But the reality, brother Tyrone, is that you and I and none of the other Hebrews in this just dispensation of time have any real understanding or able to grasp exactly what that would have been like. But you and I have a contemporary understanding of the captivity, this 400-year, this parallel, this mirror 400-year experience that you and I have had in this modern-day Egypt known as America. And so coming out of that and to celebrate 50 years free from that, we're going to have us a really great celebration this year. Every May we celebrate New World Passover, celebrate our leaving. And so this is the 50th year outside of America. And it's I think we've been celebrating this now for 43 years. After 7 years here, Prince Leah instituted this as one of our holy days. And so we're happy that in May, this coming May, we will be celebrating the 50-year anniversary of our Exodus.
Well, wow. I remember it. I'm from Philly, and I remember years ago I met this brother. I had just gotten into this, finding out about this, the Israelite way of life. I had a Star David on, and the brother asked me, "Do you know what that's about?" I was all bold and brazen back then, and this was like late early 70s, and
right.
And that's when he had told me that he had went over, but it came back, And right. I didn't see him too much after that, but I'm just saying I happened to meet somebody who said that they were over there, and I could tell that that's what this is supposed to all be about. Our gathering and
right.
returning. And I've asked different leadership, are we ever? The question I posed to a few of them: when are we ever going to be this nation that's spoken of? Will we ever be recognized by not just, most importantly, ourselves, but at the world at large as to being the house of Israel? And, that seems to be a question that bothers some leadership, but it's like it's on pause. And so it's a question that I've always had in me is, when are we going to be, from what I read, we're supposed to, be returned and the whole world is supposed to see. And so I've always wondered, and that's one of the reasons for Hint Magazine. I want my magazine to have that effect of trying to reach out and find, and so we can all come together, these different alliances, so that we can be one nation unto Yah. And so I'm happy when I hear you talk like this. So this is incredible what y'all have done.
I think the word you just used, a nation, is what is important here, because for too long it's been camps and congregations and denominations. And unless we see Israel as being a nation of people, unless we see ourselves as being a part of that entity known as a nation, then we're going to continue to have that issue. And when you ask those questions, I mean, this was what was going on in the late 60s and the early 70s. When I went through my transitioning and my awakening, I didn't realize that the brothers and sisters had left until 1976, 75, 76 is when I first even found out about them having left.
Okay.
And at that point, because of my own journey and my own awakening, I was really kind of lonely and feeling like I was maybe the one that had to lead something or do something, and I was really at a loss because I didn't get any message from any angels in that sense.
Yeah.
I was blessed to get information that definitely pointed me in the direction that Israel was my ancestral home. That was unquestionably solid in my own search, I was always very cerebral and very intellectually minded, and so all of my searching and bringing together books and meeting individuals and being led by that Holy Spirit to be pointed in that direction, I didn't know that some people had left in 67. And so when I did find out, I mean, it was a confirmation, and I was quite, like you said, it was kind of radical.
Yeah.
And we all are radical in our youth, and so it was clear because we were raised, and you know what was going on in the late 60s, early 70s.
Absolutely.
You ask somebody what time is it? The response was, it's nation time.
Right.
And so that was uplifting, and that was heart lifting for me to understand that a group of our brothers and sisters had the nerve to go and strike out and say to hell with America,
Yeah.
to strike out. And then when I found out the conditions and the sacrifices that they made as pioneers in the wilderness of Liberia for 2.5 years, and enduring enduring the naysayers and those that bet against them, literally bet against them, saying, "Oh, y'all coming back, y'all ain't gonna stay over there, y'all gonna get tired, you're gonna meet up with whatever, and you're gonna quit and come back." That alone, but to hear about the malaria and the near starvation, because naturally, even now, brother Tyrone, right now, and I think it was a brother called what's his name? One of the brothers, he's a big brother, Big Mike, I think they call him. That he kind of rebukes. It's on YouTube, and he rebukes an audience, and they talking about revolution and so forth.
Okay.
He rebuked them because how many of y'all know how to grow some food? and the reality is, we didn't know nothing about growing food. Very few people today know about growing food. If it's not on the local Kroger or the local Safeway or Jewel's or whatever the local supermarkets are, we would starve within a week. And so the reality of that little moneyed out, in Liberia, and between Ben-Ami and his partner, Nasi, or Prince Gabriel, between the two of them, they got to a point where they didn't have a penny between them. And with a penny, they could have bought a bunch of bananas. I mean, that was the local market in Liberia. It still is in some of these areas where you can live like a king in some of these areas with a little finance, but they didn't have a penny between them. And the malaria had them flat on their backs. And Prince Elkanan's daughter kind of children being children, tell them not to go down and play by the wells. They go down and play by the well. So when little Connor falls in the well, the children are afraid to come back and say, hey, Connor fell in the well. So we lost Connor that day. But these were all part of the sacrifices that were made. And no less than 2 out of every 3 that made the initial journey came back to America.
Okay.
And Ben-Ami said, he said, we don't hold any animosity because we understand the reality of beginnings. You know, we've been told about beginnings. All beginnings are hard. All beginnings are small. And all beginnings are hard to believe in some cases. And so it was that kind of sacrifice that was made for the 138 who survived the journey and weathered the journey. And you know, it's like the Marines, you know, even in their motto, you know, they're looking for a few good men. And so you know in boot camp there's a washout. You know that
sure.
there's a fall away. And you know that when Gideon was called to take on the Midianites, you know, and those tens of thousands he had in the beginning, he said, no, if I give y'all this victory, y'all gonna say it was your numbers.
Right.
And you go and tell them men who want to stay with their wives and family. You know, let them go on back, or give them a furlough, let them go on back. He said, you still got too many. Ended up being how many? 300.
Right.
Put tens of thousands of Midianites in flight. And so, you know, and today they have the movie 300. You know, they talk about some Spartans.
Yeah.
Some Romans, what have you. But this is our history. This is our heritage. And if we are not who we say we are, Brother Tyrone, in this day and age, we all need to just quit and go on and get us a fifth of scotch and a nice ride and ride on into the sunset, because certainly that's where America's headed. America's in its sunset. It's in its dusk. You know, it's in its it's in fall. And if we don't see that and recognize that, then we will be there in its midst when it does continue to fall. And so that's a dangerous place to be. And that's always been my message. You know, I mean, that was the message that I first heard, and which kind of shocked me. You know, come out of her, my people.
Yeah.
So that made sense to me in 1976.
Well,
so by 78, I was on this side.
Sure. Well, that's when I kind of came into the knowledge of myself, which was totally awe-inspiring. Like I said, I met this brother working at Temple University, and he said, we're in the scriptures, read Deuteronomy 28. I read it, and it was like, I'll never forget the feeling. Total, like, this is me, this is who I am. And from then on, this was like, mid to late 70s. It's been a struggle because I felt alone. When I found out about this, I'm like, who can I say this? Who can I talk to about this? Even own family was issues. Like if something, no one, at least not in my neighborhood, had heard of. But it's amazing. Once you come into this, then you start finding resources and people. And it's just been and it's really growing. The whole talk, the awareness, knowledge, people writing books. I mean, it's just starting to, never like, it wasn't like this 30 years ago. And 40, I'm just, yep, I'm really amazed.
Imagine 50.
Yeah.
And that's what's so, as you said, awesome, awe-inspiring about it is that 50 years ago, none of that existed. Our history here didn't exist. This awakening, I mean, there were no books.
Right.
One of the earlier books from Babylon to Timbuktu, and in fact, our brother comes out of the Philly area. He and his fleshly brother.
Yes.
Rudolph Windsor.
Yes, Professor Dr. Windsor.
That family.
Yep.
When I first got to Israel, it was Prince Eliezer, Nafik Eliezer, who kind of took me under his wing, and I adopted as a spiritual father in the early days.
Okay.
He was a great confident spirit. He used to make homemade wine down in one of the cellars. He would say,
yeah.
"Come over here, taste And it was some natural fermented juice. He had some fresh ginger he'd sliced in it. And it was great, you know. I'd buy a couple kilos of black-eyed peas in the morning and leave it for him. And when I came home for work for lunch, he'd have him cook some greens out of the garden and some rice and cornbread. And I know all this sounds like, man, that sounds like home.
Yes, home.
So but those are the memories I have. But I'm saying all that to say Nasi Eliezer came out of the Philadelphia area. You know, so it was those pockets. It was those pockets of resistance where the brothers and sisters knew of our prophetic and ancestral identity.
Right.
And who kept it alive for us.
Yes.
They kept that alive for us. So we have a great debt of gratitude, you know, for them having stood strong. And so many of them that like Joseph would have said, bury my bones, you know, don't leave my bones here in Egypt.
Right.
But they were blessed to actually get into this land. And so, you know, we keep them in mind. We keep them very close, even though they've been called to a higher level of service in transitioning. But those Holy Spirits we'll never forget.
Right.
We'll never forget.
Mm-hmm.
You know, so we're thankful. We're thankful. But like you said, there is a great awakening that continues. These bones certainly are coming together. But one of the things I've got to say, Brother Tyrone, is that, and to our audience out there, that when you talk about the awakening and the return to our consciousness and identity as who we are as Israel,
right?
You got to know that we're celebrating 50 years outside,
right? And
so even Ben-Ami's vision did not occur in a vacuum. You know, Ben-Ami didn't just one day up and get a message about being an Israelite. He knew he was an Israelite.
Gotcha.
We go back to the turn of the century, not this century, but the previous century. You know, Prophet William S. Crowdy's and the Bishop C.H. Masons and the others. And we can go back to Nat Turner, who was trying to get to a town in Virginia that, you know, the devil has a way of trying to confound and to hide and cover things up. But the town he was trying to get to was Jerusalem.
Right.
Where is Jerusalem in Virginia today?
Right.
They changed the name of that town to Cortland, you know, in Southampton County, but it was called Jerusalem. And so this memory, this oral history that was kept alive by our ancestors who had no other expression, certainly not after Nat Turner. They couldn't read, write, preach, or teach, especially after Nat Turner's rebellion.
Right.
But they kept alive a remembrance of Jerusalem and Jericho and this land, you know, the importance of this land, the Jordan River via those songs.
Right.
And so Ben-Ami's vision did not occur in a vacuum. And so any Israelites who in 2015 and 2016 are now continuing to awaken, they got to know that, hey, brothers, sisters, they've been someone who made your awakening even possible.
Right.
And I'm saying that to say that many of those who are awakening, in my humble view, honestly, are still coming out of a grave, coming out of the depths of that dead state, that dead consciousness. And so, as someone who is recently coming into that awakening state, you got to know that you still got some of those grave cloths still on you. And
yes, sir.
It's important, and it's written like that, Brother Tyrone. It's written just like that.
Mm-hmm.
It says that we would be awakened. We would come out of the graves. But Ezekiel says, "I will bring you into the land of Israel."
Yep.
And there, not in the land of the captivity,
right, but
in the land of Israel is where you would be washed up. You would get that clean water sprinkled on you.
That's right.
And we know that the water is doctrine.
Right.
The water is doctrine. It's not. We didn't come over here to take a bath.
Right.
You know, we had to come over here and get immersed.
Right.
In the truth. And and if these grave cloths are indeed what our brethren who are awakening to their Hebraic identity, then what they're still have to shed is doctrine.
Right.
And so many still have Christian doctrine.
Yes, they do.
I mean, we can be honest about this.
Yes.
Ben-Ami, we regard Ben-Ami as the messianic personage of our time, of this dispensation of time.
Okay.
And so I know a lot of brothers and sisters, first of all, they ain't even contemplated that.
Right.
And then their initial reaction is, no, he ain't, because they had some other kind of expectations.
Gotcha.
In Ben-Ami's writings, in his very first writing, God, the Black Man and Truth, which we published in 1981, 1982, we were still using Jesus. We were still talking about Jesus.
Right.
But we weren't talking about Jesus even in the sense of an expectation of a Jesus up on a cloud. We knew back then that nobody was coming to save us on a cloud.
Right.
But even the name Jesus, we hadn't elevated in our consciousness to understand, no, can't be Jesus. Wasn't no J. Name was Yeshua. And so in our elevation, in our evolutionary growth,
right,
the more we found out, the more truth we were exposed to, the next question becomes, well, where do we apply this truth? So when you look at the later writings, we're not talking about Jesus. We're talking about Yeshua.
Right.
We're not talking about God. We're talking about y'all. Hallelujah, y'all. So we're using the divine name and the divine attributes and what have you. And so we've evolved in our consciousness, evolved in our teachings, and evolved in our doctrine. So all of those Christian expectations have fallen away. We don't refer to Sunday, Monday, Tuesday, because we know that those are giving honor and credit to Greco-Roman gods.
Right.
Just that, Moses said, don't even let the names of other gods be heard upon thy lips.
Exactly.
And so no longer do we, amongst ourselves, no longer do we refer to Tuesday and Sunday and Woden's Day. We, not in our midst, but if we're talking to our brethren who don't understand and that this aren't part of this world that we have built here,
right,
on this side of the water, then we'll say Sunday for the sake of making sure we're on the same calendar.
Right. Yes. Understandable.
But I'm saying all that to say is that when you understand the world that you and I were born into in these contemporary times, people are waiting for an anti-Christ.
Yes.
An anti-God force. And they've been given a Greco-Roman mythical expectation of not just the anti-Christ, but of the Christ.
Right. Yes.
The anointed one. And so what other grave cloths could they be viewing the world through except for the dominant Greco-Roman culture through which they've been educated?
Yes, that's all they know.
Jesus is a lot more than a name. Jesus is much more than a name.
That's right.
Jesus is much more than an image. Jesus is a culture that you and I have been steeped in.
Yes.
And so you don't get rid of that overnight.
No.
you don't shed that overnight.
That's true.
So I'm just my plea, as I engage with a lot of the brethren who come with that fire and that zeal that you and I came with in our early, youngsters, as youngsters in the struggle, and youngsters in truth, as we said. How long you been in the truth? Well, you got to know that somebody 1, 2, 3, 10 years in the truth, you can't compare yourself to somebody been 5 decades in the truth.
Yeah.
And again, I'm saying this in humility.
Right.
And sometimes, like in the movies, you need somebody to slap you. You need somebody to say, "Hey, brother, get yourself together."
Right.
And when you realize that you were off, when you realize that you were indeed a little wet behind the ears, you will say in your own humility, you will say, "Thank you, elder. Thank you.
Sure.
I needed that."
Mm-hmm.
And so that's my plea. That's my prayer. That's our humble plea on behalf of those who have paid these dues, not for us. We never called this Ben-Ami's kingdom. Mm-hmm. We called this the kingdom of Yah.
Right.
This is Yah's kingdom. And so it says here that the kingdom would be thus, thus, and thus. I mean, we've had people, they're actually still waiting on actually literal streets of gold, brother Tyrone. Now,
yeah,
I don't want to break it to you.
Right.
I don't know how to break it to you the other way. But that if you are looking for literal streets of gold to come descending out of the literal sky, that's never going to happen. I mean, unless we believe in some Greco-Roman mythology.
Well, that's the only way. There's a lot of that out here.
That's the only way that's going to happen.
Yeah.
That's the only way that's going to happen. So if you understand, I've had brothers say that, well, it says here that Jerusalem was going to be desolate. And you can go to Jerusalem. I'm touching now on those who have the teachings and want to believe that Tel Arad, which is right here in our backyard, it's part of the area of Judea in which we live. We live in southern Judea.
Mm-hmm.
And so that's our backyard. But those who want to say that Tel Arad is the true Mount Zion and the true Jerusalem, they will say that, well, it says that Jerusalem would be desolate. Well, let's look at that word desolate.
Yes.
And they'll go on and they will say, well, that can't be Jerusalem because they got streets and they've got cars and buildings and people. Wait a minute.
Yeah.
You don't understand the spirituality of a message?
Yes.
A spiritual desolation? That you could have a civilization.
That's right.
You could have a huge city and it yet be desolate because it's void of the spirit of Yah. And so that's what put your spiritual eyes on, put your spiritual intelligence on.
Right.
And look at this for what it is. We live in a world that's in great darkness. Are you looking for actually darkness? No, it said the world would be in darkness and the people in gross darkness.
Right.
And darkness is absence of light. And what is light biblically? Light was intelligence.
Right.
So, we've just come at you touched on, you said something about Trump earlier in our conversation. I don't know if it was the part that we were recording, but you touched on Donald Trump. And, I look and I get sick when I look at the brothers and sisters who keep trying to make Obama out to be, something great in our history. And I'm like, who was it? Michael Dyson, I think it was. Michael Eric Dyson.
Right.
Michael Dyson, whatever his name is.
Mm-hmm.
Who at one of the big national powwows that they had, the conference table with the so-called leadership. And I do agree that at the end, with this statement at the end, he said, Obama's not Moses. He said Obama's Pharaoh. And that's the truth. Obama was a Pharaoh. And so everyone wants to make Obama into this intellectual, intelligent black man. Hold on a minute.
Sure.
Let me close this call out. Okay, I think that did it. Obama, I don't see Obama as having been so intelligent. And I'm going to use a very, very simple measuring rod. It's a measuring rod that we use in our world, this world that we've built. Granted, it's a small world, but again, all beginnings are small.
Right.
But the measuring rod I use for Obama not being so smart is that Obama was a smoker. He smoked cigarettes. Now, that's not very intelligent. When you understand what cigarettes do to your body, and when you understand that your body is the temple that was being referred of or to in the scriptures, that this is the true temple where the Holy One of Israel resides,
right,
where the Spirit of Yah resides, then to smoke is not such an intelligent thing.
Right.
And you mean to tell me that with all the knowledge that you have about smoking, and I'm sure that he's wrestled with, I need to quit. I mean, he had the intelligence to know that he should never be seen in front of the American people with a cigarette.
Right.
Have you ever seen him smoke?
No.
Tyrone, you ever seen him smoke?
No, I haven't.
They don't have that.
No.
They don't allow that image to be out there because they know that
Sure.
And so putting it back, I see what happened when I had to close this call out. It went off speaker.
Uh-huh.
Yeah. So that measuring rod alone, not to mention the fact that as a representative, as the number one, as we would call them, the mouthpiece, for America for those 8 years, that he had more targeted assassinations, than any of the other presidents combined, thanks to the drones and what have you.
Yeah.
Now, granted, the brother had a lot of pop and swag to him. He had that. All the brothers, carry it that way. We carry our business strong, whoever we represented. But as a representative, he was not a representative of the Holy One of Israel. But the whole irony of it is that the world in 2008, during the elections, the world was ready for a black leader, a black Messiah, if you will. Okay?
Yeah, when you think about it.
That explains why he got this outpouring of not just in America, but internationally.
Yeah.
Explain why he hadn't done a thing and was given the Nobel Peace Prize. Based on what?
Yeah.
It was based on a hope. It was based on a hope that this is the age when dark skin, comes back to the fore, comes back to the head, comes back to the seat of power, and can lead a world that is in darkness back to the light. But that wasn't his role.
No, it was not.
That wasn't his prophetic purpose. And likewise with Donald Trump. Donald Trump, we don't even have to take too much time. I'm not going to go into his intellectual capabilities and capacities and his moral bankruptcy. We don't even need to go there.
Right. But
I will say this about Donald Trump. He is a man with a mission. And it's clear from his first week in office, Donald Trump is a man on a mission.
Yes,
he is.
I don't
have more to say about it.
Yep.
But what about Israel? What about the children of Israel? What about those who say they are Jews and are Jews?
That's right.
What about Judea? Those who understand their prophetic or ancestral identity and then what their prophetic mission is to be. We need to understand what our role is and be about it. It's that simple. Because it's that kind of time. And I've always said it's late. I know a lot of the Hebrews say 2019 marks the end of the 400 years. And they're basing that, Brother Tyrone, on Jamestown.
Yes, Virginia.
Jamestown was not the first arrival
exactly.
of the enslaved Hebrews that were captured and brought into the Western Hemisphere.
That's true.
That can't possibly be the mark.
Right.
It's almost a full century prior.
Yes.
When they were being brought into the South American lands,
yes.
the Caribbean lands.
Yep.
They were even brought captives from West Africa into Europe.
Yes, exactly. Before landing, here to North America. I agree, without a doubt.
So you late. And I've said it before. If you're trying to catch a flight and you got to get to the airport, even this was we used to use this analogy back before there was such a thing as TSA, before 9/11. We told people all the time, hey, if you're trying to get a train or a transport out, you get there early, plenty of time.
Yes.
You don't wait till the last minute to start getting ready.
Right.
And there's no problem being early now. So what was the argument when Ben-Ami made the move in '67?
Right.
It ain't time.
Right. Yes.
It ain't time.
Mm-hmm.
Don't too early.
Right.
Well, what can we say now? 50 years later, we back to that 50 again.
Right.
And that you got to know that we didn't just stumble up on being here in Israel.
Right.
And evolving to the point where we are now permanent residents and in many cases citizens of this land.
Sure.
And we understand again, the reality of the state of Israel and the dangers inherent with politics.
Sure. Mm-hmm.
You know, I just recently saw an interview with his name Friedman. I posted it on my YouTube, on my Facebook account.
Oh, okay.
Not Milton Friedman, it's another Friedman. Thomas.
Tom, I'm getting ready to say yes.
Yeah, he's a very well respected writer, reporter. He did a lot of time in the quote unquote Middle East, in this region, covering Israel. And I love what he had to say, you know, about Israel today, and Donald Trump's talk about moving the U.S. Embassy from Tel Aviv to Jerusalem,
right?
And the obvious provocations that the settlements policies is doing relative to the Palestinians.
Yes.
And his answer was simple. He said, friends don't let friends drive drunk. He was talking about America and Israel's friendship.
Okay.
And so in the contemporary politics of things, it's clear to us that the wisdom and the intelligence that you would expect from the leaders of the state of Israel seems to be on the wane. You know,
gotcha.
Seems to be lacking a bit right now. And so we who are here, and we who are actually, you know, our destiny is tied to some extent with the state. And so we are obligated to raise our voices and say, Mr. Prime Minister, state members of the Knesset, you need to reconsider your decisions right now. You need to reconsider your policies, and perhaps you need to find another way to achieve your objectives.
Right.
It's a very tangled situation. It's a very tangled international problem. I mean, it's no secret. I mean, it's brought down many a government. It has entangled America and the European Union and all the powers of the world. And you know what it talked about Jerusalem, that burdensome stone. Zechariah said that burdensome stone, that trembling cup, that all the nations round about, you know, would try to, you know, anybody that burden themselves with this, they will get broke, beaten to pieces by this burdensome stone.
Very.
So, the modern Western world, the Euro-American world, headed by the European Union and America, with its Israeli government counterparts here,
sure,
they have to be trembling right now if those who understand what time it is. And my message personally, as I've moved around, and I think you may have heard it when we met down in Florida.
Yep.
Is that Israel has to return back to her African roots. Israel's got to return back to her African roots. We are in Africa. Israel is geologically and geographically on the African plate. Hebrew is an Afro-Semitic, Afro-Asiatic language. The ancient Hebrews, the ones that are referred to in the scriptures, I know that many of our brothers and sisters who come from the Afrocentric and Kemetic persuasions want to denigrate the Bible as being a white man's book, which is absolute foolishness when you realize that Egypt and Ethiopia are referred to more than 1,400 times. What kind of white man's book is that?
Yeah, I know. They got problems.
So they've got to get over that hump too. They got to get across that spiritual barrier so that they can cross over the Suez Canal, Tyrone. They got to reclaim Israel.
That's right.
Part of ancient Africa. And it's easy to do when you understand about Joseph and his brethren. You can understand why they don't want to give up Israel.
Right.
Why the Egyptologists will draw the line for what was Black Africa and what was another color of Kemet. Because they still haven't given up the first 25 dynasties being African. They're still Caucasian.
Yes.
Africans.
Absolutely amazing.
And they do that because they know they have to give up Israel too. And that's problematic for them.
Yes, it is.
It's a problem, but it's not our problem.
No.
It's a problem for them. And And so we've reclaimed our destiny. We've reclaimed our ancestry. We've reclaimed our roots. We've reclaimed our place in this land. You have an address in this land. And that's our message to all of the Israelite brothers and sisters. That you've got an address here.
Okay.
You've got a stake here in this land. And that's not something you come and denigrate and say, oh, it ain't time, and y'all went about it the wrong way, and where does it say we're supposed to be vegans? And I can give you answers to all of your questions if you would have the humility to come and ask. And we can give you, we think, our valid explanations and biblical references and common sense explanations for why we do what we do and why we are here doing what we're doing right now.
Right.
And so, again, back to 50 years. If you've got to know that the reasons why Israel got put out of this land, why Judea, why the Judeans, Judah and Benjamin, why we were scattered in the first place, it had to do with our disobedience. It had to do with our relationship with the Creator. And obviously it was a very bad relationship. And so we have restored the relationship. We have restored that breach. And if we hadn't restored it, then you'd have to know that the same Creator, the same creative forces that kicked us out of this land, evicted us from this land for disobedience thousands of years ago, it would be a small thing to put us out again.
Yeah, that's for sure.
Here we've been protected. The state of Israel, in the first 20-odd years of our being here, their policy was to evict us. Their policy was to deport us. Didn't happen. And all along we were saying, you didn't bring us here, you can't put us out.
Right.
And so what's changed? If we are able to make peace with the Holy One of Israel, then, like it's written, it says, then even our enemies will be at peace with us. So we stand on that. It must be something we know.
Yes.
It must be something that we've come in contact with to give us that kind of holy boldness and that kind of presence. It's not to say that we're not without challenges and we're not without problems.
Sure.
But we don't have the same kind of problems that people in Chicago have. We don't have the same kind of problems that people in Harlem have.
Right.
In fact, Harlem is so gentrified. I used to come from my home on that side, the place where I was born anyway, D.C. We had a fondness of calling it Chocolate City.
Yes.
Mm-hmm. D.C.'s not Chocolate City anymore.
Right.
And so the problems that we deal with on this side, you would laugh at us. Some of the problems that we have our challenges.
Mm-hmm.
We've got our challenges with the next generation, with our children and youth, but hey, we were all children once.
Yeah.
And we know the foolishness that we did as children. So that's par for the course. And in this day and time, the adversary has a way of targeting our children. And we do the best we can in protecting them and providing for them and taking measures to make sure that after they come back from going crazy, that they'll have a place to come back to.
Sure.
And so at 50 years, you got to know our roots are strong in this land.
I would say
that you expand on. You don't come and tear down. You expand on it if you're part of the family.
You had mentioned, I agree with you on, what you've been speaking on, Trump, man on a mission, absolutely. The Obama situation, I agree with your analysis, and even Michael Eric Dyson's last statement at the end, what you were talking about. But it's just talk about a spiritual craving. This is what many in the United States, have thought about. So they looked at it as almost like a biblical answer with President Obama becoming president, with Barack becoming president of the United States. So I think a lot of times, I don't want to say it gets a bad, but a lot of pressure, all that whole concept of what that meant for, enslavement, the mindset, what people were thinking. We finally reached this point. I don't think you're going to have nobody else come along, at least here in the United States, with that type of aura without doing anything. This was all speculation and hope, and I just think, yeah. I just think
if it was going to be in that manner, that was our chance.
Yeah, because a lot
for those who would say that Obama represented the pinnacle, of the achievement, that how your sons and daughters, you can be anything you want to be. Stop lying.
Yeah.
Stop lying.
Yeah.
Again, they need to be slapped. They need to be slapped.
Yeah.
And I remember vividly that at Obama's, his ascension to the presidency marked the fulfillment of King's dream, the realization of King's dream. And this was the whole thing. We're now in a post-racial America. Are you kidding? What post-racial America are we living in? Where,
looks the same to me.
The friction, to be called a liar from the floor of the Congress.
Right.
Given the state of the union address, to
right.
be called a liar, to have all of the other disrespectful things that have occurred, to show him you might be president, but you're still a nigger.
Right. Yeah.
That was the message, and that was to him, and that same message has resonated across the entire segment of African American community. So no, brother, we know that was. If he was going to do it, that was his chance.
Yeah.
If it was going to happen. But the thing we got to know, and I bring back King's dream.
Right.
King was a work in progress also.
Sure.
So the 1963 I Have a Dream King was not the 1968 mountaintop.
That's for sure.
Get to the promised land.
Right.
A lot transpired in those 5 years, and one of the major things I always bring to mind is his private conversation with Harry Belafonte.
Okay.
Wherein he told you still there?
Yep.
Okay. Belafonte realized that King was troubled. This was 68. This is after him coming out against the Vietnam War. This
right.
is after, that hit a nerve, It was okay for them to be marching for their rights, but to get in and to mingle in America's international affairs,
right.
It was like, you've crossed the line, boy.
Mm-hmm.
And he knew he was a marked man. And so King is troubled, and Belafonte asked him, said, what's got you down? He said, I can't help but think that sometimes that we're integrating into a burning house. And so anybody who follows the trajectory of that evolution called Dr. King, knowing where he was at his assassination, knowing the words that he spoke on the eve of his assassination,
right.
the night of, speaking about getting to the promised land,
right.
You got to start connect. Wait a minute now. The Holy One of Israel was speaking through the brother,
mm-hmm.
and sending us a message. And if we can go back, because it's very important, because we're going to be celebrating a string of 50-year anniversaries coming up.
Right.
We've already celebrated the 50-year last year
mm-hmm.
of Ben-Ami's vision. Ben-Ami got the vision in
right.
66. So we celebrated 50 years of the vision last year.
Mm-hmm.
Now we're celebrating the 50 years outside of America. And then in another 2.5 years, we'll be celebrating our arrival in Israel. And then we'll be celebrating our establishment and declaration that the kingdom has been established. And it goes on and on.
Right.
But if we go back 50 years, it was in 1966, Ben-Ami has his vision. 67, we leave. He and those 350 leave and come to Liberia.
Right.
And it's while we are in Liberia, in 1968, when King is in Memphis, where he shares his mountaintop message, and then he's assassinated on April the 4th. His message was the night of April the 3rd. He's assassinated April the 4th. the next now the brothers and sisters are in Liberia. They're 100 miles in the bush. There's no phones, no cell phones. There's no phones. You have to go to Monrovia to call America. To get what they call the old communication center.
Right. Yeah.
And so in 1968, we're in Liberia. We're in the bush. We got transistor radios that no doubt the brothers and sisters there got reports about King's assassination. They got reports about the cities erupting in flames.
Sure.
Riots and what have you.
Yep.
And so it's the next month, May, which is why we celebrate our New World Passover in May. The next month, May, when Ben-Ami and Prince Kiskiyahu get on a plane and come to Israel. And so that's the mark of our Exodus.
Gotcha.
And so is this a coincidence?
Mm-hmm.
Because we didn't know what King said that night. That hadn't hit us in Liberia yet.
Right.
We didn't know what his message was. That wasn't something that was talked about. It was still, King, the dreamer, whatever. Those things that wasn't broadcast on television.
Right.
There was no live broadcast in Memphis. So these things took time to even get out there. But the next month, we leave Liberia and set foot back in this holy land. Coincidence or providence?
Gotcha.
I don't need to tell you. We look at it as providence.
Absolutely.
And we've been on this path too long not to know the hand of Yah when we see it moving.
Yeah.
Both moving us and protecting us.
Yep.
So we've got great, and Ben-Ami used to teach a class. And many of these messages are still in our archives, and we make them available. In fact, if you're not already on our what we call it the Sacred Seeds group in Messenger, I'll see to it that you get included.
Okay.
And we put little 10-minute clips every day of one of the older archival messages. But he had a message, and he called it internal damnation, external deliverance. And the message was simple. If we remain in the lands of the captivity, if we remain under the influence and under the decision-making of those who we know don't have our best interests at heart,
right,
then we're set up for damnation. And that the Holy One of Israel, the Creator, has always, historically, whenever Israel was in a situation, was in a captivity, the deliverance, it was external.
Yes.
There was no reform. There were no reformers to come and straighten out the dominant culture.
Right.
Abraham, what was it that moved Abraham at the pinnacle of Chaldean culture? What did he see? What did he hear that caused him to strike out?
Right.
And become a wanderer?
Yes.
And to wander in this region. He left Chaldea at the peak of its civilization. It wasn't that he saw it falling physically.
Mm-hmm.
He must have seen something spiritually.
Yes.
What is it that caused Moses not to be content? Why didn't Moses just try to be like some of them other Hebrews that were the military leadership? Because I don't want you to think that they weren't some of the lieutenant colonels.
That's right.
Generals in the Egyptian army. They were.
Yeah.
They were the what do you call it? The bourgeois class.
Yeah.
I went to another conference. In Paris this past about a year ago. I was in another conference, and one of the Israeli Jewish anthropologists had gone to Cameroon, and he was doing a piece on the Bassa, and he was examining the Bassa's oral traditions. And the Bassa, they claimed that they were the Hebrews that were left behind when Moses left. They stayed. They opted to stay.
Right. Yeah.
In Egypt.
Mm-hmm.
But when they got word that the Egyptians, Pharaoh's army was drowned in the sea, they said, man, they're going to be mad at us. Let's get out of here. And so they went west. They traveled west.
Okay.
And became those who ended up in Cameroon. Now, that makes sense to us. That makes sense to us.
Absolutely.
They would carry that tradition and that they identify as being Hebrews. And so we know that all the Hebrews didn't leave in ancient times.
Right.
And we know all the Hebrews not going to leave in contemporary times.
Yeah, that's for sure.
So,
yep.
They're just not going to do it.
Right.
But I'm not getting ready to, as we say, I'll be damned.
Mm-hmm.
No, I'm not going to pin my hopes on something internal, that something's going to change,
right?
That something miraculous is going to come and take place in America that's going to save us. We had to strike out on our own and accept what I would call the burdens of freedom. If you stay in the captivity, you will accept the burdens of slavery. But if you strike out on your own and you accept the external deliverance, you're going to have to accept the burdens of freedom. Either way, you're going to carry a burden.
Right.
Because you can wait on your Social Security check, but you don't know the prognosis for Social Security. You don't see the coming collapse.
Yeah.
You're going to think that your little bank accounts and your little pensions are going to protect you in the coming days. You won't even be able to buy food at a local grocery store because they won't be in existence. They see the chaos and confusion that's about to descend on that culture.
Yes.
On that society. And so you can accept those burdens. You can let somebody else make those decisions for you, and you trust in those doctors.
A lot of truth there, brother. Yeah. Mm-hmm.
When we accepted the burden to step out on our own, we had to develop our own healthcare systems. We had to have our own doctors and nurses to look out for us. We had to develop a way not to get sick because, hey, wasn't no doctors up in the interior of the bush. and the hospital in Liberia was called JFK. It was named after John F. Kennedy. But you know what the local Liberians called it? Just for killing. So that shows you the faith,
yeah,
the faith that had in that medicine. And you all know the number 3 cause of death after cancer, after heart problems, is what? It's the healthcare system itself. Number 3 cause of death in America. I ain't talking about a third world country.
Right.
I'm talking about America.
Mm-hmm. Yep. So
we can accept the burdens of slavery. You can stay there, and you can pin your hopes on your Social Security check, and talking about 2020, a new president. Are you kidding? 2020. That sounds so far off to me.
Mm-hmm.
And it ought to sound far off to you, because at the rate Mr. Trump is moving, Mr. Trump is going to have America. People talk about World War III. Brothers and sisters, when people go back and analyze World War I, which 100 years ago was raging, 100 years ago World War I was raging, but they didn't call it World War I then.
No.
It was called the Great War.
Yes.
And nobody, when the historians went back and tried to find the reason and the beginning point of World War I, it wasn't with the first shot. It was some other things that were happening that led up to World War I. And so World War III has already begun. And you got to see it with that kind of mind's eye, that World War III has begun. And don't let Trump fool you that he's got some kind of he's in the pocket with the Russians and friendly with the Russians. Prophetically, Russia and America they have a date. They have a date. And Russian nuclear weapons. See, people think that the end of the Cold War was the end of the Soviet Union.
Yeah, well, yeah. Yep. That's the mindset.
The bear did not die. The bear went into hibernation.
That's all.
And sleep is medicine. When people go into a coma, that's the body's defense. That's the body's last defense, to make you sleep so that you can rest.
Mm-hmm.
And while resting, the body is beginning to heal itself. That's why doctors even put you in an induced coma.
Yes.
Mm-hmm. And so when that bear was resting, it was rebuilding.
Right.
And the new Russia is back and with a vengeance. Putin said the worst thing that ever happened in the history of Russia was the collapse of the Soviet Union. So he ain't trying to, he's flexing.
Yeah.
He flexed in Syria. He flexed with this whole election. And the flexing is not over.
No.
America's going to flex back. No matter what Trump, whatever deals he got with Russia or your new Secretary of State, America's going to flex back, and they're going to get it on.
Yeah.
Guess what? America's not strong like she used to be.
Right.
You know, she might think she's strong, but America is a weakling. China, you know, what the prophecy say, let the weak say I am strong. Kim Il-sung in North Korea, let the weak say I am strong. You know.
Yeah.
You last thing Obama did was send troops into Poland, right at Russia's doorstep. America didn't allow Russia, Khrushchev, to put their missiles in Cuba.
Right.
Why do you think that Russia is not going to respond likewise to American troops being in Poland? You know, this war has already begun. The war don't start with the first shot.
Right.
They say the beginning of wars are trade wars, and that's Trump's whole platform.
Yeah, the trade. Mm-hmm. It's a big one.
America first.
Yeah.
Trade wars. Seal off the borders. New trade deals. In the TPP. We're going to negotiate one-on-one with these countries. It's all about trade. It's all about money.
Yep.
And that's the war. And if we go to the book of Revelation, 18th chapter, after it says about coming out of her, my people, when it gets to the point about the merchants of the earth looking upon Babylon, burning, and what does it say? It says the merchants of the earth are wailing. They're wailing.
Yeah,
Why? Because there's no one to buy our merchandise anymore. Well, first of all, that throws a whole monkey wrench in this Greco-Roman perspective. One of those grave cloths again. That the end of the world was the end of the entire planet. That the whole planet was going to burn up. It's not the whole planet.
No.
It's Babylon. It's Babylon. And so it's incumbent upon us to determine who is this Babylon?
Yeah.
What modern entity is this Babylon? And it's America and Europe. That's what's going to burn. And all of those who are tied into it, all of those whose economies, whose political systems, whose doctrines, whose transport systems, whose knowledge systems are all tied into that, they're gonna be caught with their pants down too. They're gonna be wailing, weeping. So it's important that those of us who understand what time it is and what's coming around the corner, that we detach ourselves from that world. And that's why our focus, and next month I'll be in South Africa, Brother Tyrone. I'll be spending a month in South Africa, moving around our jurisdictions there.
Okay.
And our message, you know, we got brothers and sisters in Ghana, in Kenya, Togo, Benin, Zimbabwe, you know, and our message to our brethren in Africa is stop following European Americans. And more the brothers and sisters are awakening to that reality. That, hey, I mean, it's like the Wizard of Oz. It's the little black dog, Toto, that had to run up to the curtain and pull the curtain back for the world to see. Is this the man who made kingdoms to tremble and earth to shake? Is this the man?
Right.
This shriveled up 15% of the world, you know, we calling ourselves a minority. Is this the man?
Right.
Who's running things? Who got everybody shook?
Understandable. Yep. There's a whole lot there.
And we try to be like, not just with the blonde hair and the suit and tie, you know, but in our government. Hold on a moment. Got another call coming in.
Okay.
Okay. that's our message to our brethren, that they have to detach themselves from that world, because that world that tells us progress, with technology,
right,
and democracy. Come on, man. Democracy, the bodies of the world that monitor democratic policy and democratic activity, they now recognize that America is no longer a democracy. They said it. So let's stop fooling folks.
right.
Democracy is not a system desired. And of course, its sister is capitalism. And just in the last year or two, we have moved from, I think it was something like 15 families who had as much wealth as the rest of the other half of the world,
right,
to now it's 8 people. 8 people.
Yeah.
So you can tell me that capitalism is a good something that we want to pursue, that we would forsake our brothers and sisters for some money? No.
Right.
Africa is our future. Africa is the source of most of the world's wealth.
Yeah.
The riches, the diamond, the gold, the platinum, the silver. We ain't even scratched the surface in Africa, so that's not our problem. We don't even need to worry about, like it says, you don't need to worry about material things.
Right.
If we're the sons of the Creator, if that's the case, we don't have to worry about that.
Right.
We just have to make sure, as it says, the earth is the Lord's and the fullness thereof.
Yep.
So that's our faith. We as the sons and daughters of Yah, we who have returned back to a lifestyle, back to a way of life, back to a culture, and are building the foundational blocks of a civilization that's built on those kind of principles that Yah would instill in a people, have in a people representing Him on this earth, being that light unto the nations. Well, what nations would we go to first?
Yeah.
Yeshua said, I'm first, the lost sheep of the house of Israel.
Right.
So we don't have missions in Russia. We don't have missions in Poland and Czechoslovakia. We do have in London, because there's a very large Afro-Caribbean community in London. We're in Paris. There's a large African community in Paris. But outside of that, we're in Ghana, we're in Kenya, we're drilling wells, we're giving schools and villages water in those countries. And when you give a village some water, when you give a school some water for its children, don't you know that they would happily give you whatever you want, some land?
Yeah.
I mean, what it would cost to build a house on the continent in the last 30 days or so, we witnessed Ghana give dual citizenship. They gave citizenship to many of the repatriates, and some of our brothers were part of that.
Okay.
So we have that now, that flexibility where we've been able to win the confidence of our brothers and sisters on the continent, because they got to know, first of all, you left America when?
Right.
50 years ago you left, you left America 50 years ago? Wow. You did what?
Yeah.
You endured what? You serious? You've been here in Ghana for 40 years? You've been here teaching us how to eat? That we can't eat meat and be healthy?
Right.
We can't smoke and be healthy? You've been doing that for 40 years in Ghana? Man, we can trust you.
Yes.
We can't trust Obama and his group. We sure can't trust Trump. So, but Brother Tyrone, there's a whole camp, there's a whole cadre of camps who say they are not African.
Yeah. Yes, indeed.
And who are mad at the Africans for enslaving them, as they would say.
Yep.
Selling them into captivity. That ain't the case. You can't blame them brothers and sisters for that.
No.
You got to blame yourself.
That's where the blame falls. Yep.
Yeah.
Yep. Exactly.
So again, we're paving the way.
Right.
We're paving the way in these lands. I'll be in South Africa for 30 days. So and not on vacation. I want to make it clear. Although I will have some moments, and I find great comfort being in a predominantly African land.
I hear you.
Amongst brothers and sisters.
Mm-hmm.
You know.
Sure.
In Congo, I was in Congo, and I was there during one of the coups that took place in Congo. Heard the gunshots and the cannon fire. But hey, I'd rather be there than listening to gunshots in Chicago right now.
Yeah, that's for sure. I hear you. Yep.
Don't let anybody tell you, oh, they fighting over there. What do you think is going on in the streets of America?
Yeah.
It's a war.
Yeah.
It's a war.
My brother,
so,
it's
50 years.
Yeah.
50 years. And we simply say 50 years making the decision that we made, that Ben-Ami and those who left with him in 1967.
Right.
We're glad they left when they did, and we're thankful, and we're celebrating that.
Sure.
Those who decided to stay 50 years, you can't even find them.
Right.
They're not around.
Mm-hmm.
They're not around.
Wow. My brother's.
And like I promised, this is not going to be the first time.
No.
I mean, the last time, rather.
Yes.
We've been talking about this ever since we met.
Yes.
And so I'm just glad we finally, got it going, and maybe we can keep some momentum going to it. And maybe I don't know, we can figure out a way to have it interactive where some brothers and sisters can call in online and be live, or
yeah,
they can send you questions, and I'll entertain the questions directly from you if you want next time.
Sure. We'll look to expand on this system that I have to see. I'm sure that's something that can be done. Where we can be interactive with this. I think it's very important. You spoke on touched on a lot of different topics that are all relevant, and the spiritual, like you and I agree wholeheartedly. This has been no stumble. You don't stumble into this or stumble into anything. This was something that worked itself, and it came to a point in my life where this took place, and it hasn't been no stumble. It's been good changes and blessings to. I just want to give praise to the Most High, the Yah of Abraham, Isaac, and Jacob regarding my coming into this way of life. And there's no turning back. And I don't want to turn back. So I enjoy. If it means being different, then that's what it is. And look, it's really, I want to thank you for taking the time for us to speak, for you to give your views and the importance of 50. I learned a lot this morning. Martin Luther King and, that whole, Prophet William S. Crowdy, these individuals that passed that we have, that we can call out to, our ancestors, and where they paved the way. And I just want to thank you. And ask, we will do this again soon, and we'll be in touch. And also, there's an author. Her name is Huldah David. She'll be coming to the Dimona in, I think, the end of March. And she wanted me to let you know of her arrival. She wants to come, the Kingdom of Yah to the place, and I'll.
Is this the sister that wrote Hidden in Plain Sight?
Yes, it is. Yep.
I no more than an hour before we started, did one of the brothers come to me and tell me that she had gotten in touch with him and that she couldn't get in touch with me, but that she was trying. And he just told me about it an hour ago. But I'm glad to hear that. We look forward to hosting her.
Yes, indeed. Her and her husband. I'll be doing a radio interview with
California.
Yes, in California, and we're highlighting her book on our website, hint-magazine.com.
Okay.
So it just means the world to me. This is my way of, not my only way, but one way in which I can reach out and bring them voices and that truth out here as I want y'all in every household and every soul. Spirit for people to recognize, so we can start learning to love one another. And this is an opportunity for me. And meeting you in Florida a few years ago, that whole situation was, I'm learning constantly every day. So praise Yah. And look, we'll be in touch, and I'll get that other info. And you already heard about Holder, so that's great. And we'll keep doing what we have to do.
That's great. Great. I regard you, my brother, as a part of the whole. We are in what we call the season of the whole, and so it takes a lot of different parts to function as a whole. Israel's a nation, and we, this is no individual, kind of contest here.
Right.
And so we respect the intellect, we respect the pieces of the puzzle that everyone brings to the table, and the gifts and the talents and skills. And that's the only way that we're going to make this happen. All these bits and pieces, all of these bones that are being brought together.
Yep.
But remember, it said, I will bring these bones back to the house back into their land, back into the land of Israel.
Yep.
So we're happy. We're happy to be part of that family. I regard you as my brother. I always have. Looking forward to meeting our sister. Looking forward to meeting, but seeing our brother again. Was with us down in Miami, down in Virginia.
Elder Farrar.
Philly.
Elder Moses Farrar. Oh yeah.
Looking for Moses Farrar. Looking forward to hosting him here in the Holy Land.
Sure.
Again, this you got an address,
Yes, I do.
And so we're thankful. We're glad we got this kicked off, and looking forward to working with you in the future.
Look.
So we're an hour or so away from the Shabbat here.
Yep.
We're about to have a little feast. We eat our meal before the sun comes in because we fast from sundown to sundown. Maybe we can talk about some of the health things.
Okay.
On the next conversation.
Sure.
That's a critical part of it. But we're going into the Shabbat, and we're thankful for this day of rest. The Creator. We work hard, but He gave us a day of rest built into this culture. So
right.
What to say?
Look.
So, love and blessings to everybody there, to the entire family.
Thank you, brother.
And look forward to the next time.
All right. Shalom.
All right. Shalom alaikum, my brother.
Alaikum shalom.
Shalom.